Good evening, and welcome to the work session meeting of the Kingman Common Council on November 19th, 2019 at 5 o'clock. Could we have a roll call, please?
Mayor Miles,
Here.
Mayor Wilson,
Here.
Councilmember Scott Staley,
Present.
Councilmember Watkins, Councilmember Waite,
Here.
Councilmember Mello Keener is excused for this evening. We have a quorum.
Thank you. All work session items are listed for discussion only. No action can or will be taken. The primary purpose of work session meetings is to provide the City Council with the opportunity for in-depth discussion and study of specific subjects. Public comment is not provided for on the agenda and may be made only as approved by consensus of the Council. In appropriate circumstances, a brief presentation may be permitted by a member of the public or another interested party on an agenda item if invited by the mayor or city manager to do so. The mayor may limit or end the time for such presentations. I would mention that our city manager is excused. He may come in a little bit later, we hope so. And we'll just continue with the topics of the evening. And the first one is subdivision deadlines and streets and sidewalks development policies discussion. Mr. Rich Ruggles, thank you.
Good evening, Mayor, members of the council. And I have the first half of this presentation this evening. This is on the subdivision processes and deadlines that we have adopted through the subdivision ordinance. The ordinance itself was adopted by Ordinance 504 in August of 1983. The subdivision ordinance regulates the process for subdividing land and what improvements must be made to the public infrastructure in order to support future development within a subdivision. It does not, however, regulate any land use. City Council is involved in approving preliminary plats and final plats, as well as approving and releasing assurance agreements for the completion of subdivision improvements and for the final acceptance of those improvements for city maintenance. So the first step in subdividing land is the preparation of a preliminary plat and the drainage report by a engineer registered in the state of Arizona. The preliminary plat shows the general layout of the proposed streets, lots, public utilities, parcels, and easements that are reserved for public purposes such as drainage and utilities. It goes before the Planning and Zoning Commission first, and then it comes before the City Council for their review. Plat is been approved by the City Council, and that approval is valid for 24 months from the date of the council action. Within that 24-month time frame, the final plat or the phases of the plat of the subdivision must be submitted for review prior to council approval. Or the developer must request an extension of time prior to the expiration date. Council may grant an extension of time for up to 2 years. There's no limit to the number of extensions that may be requested. However, at the council's discretion, it may be approved, and it's ultimately based upon the staff recommendations. Basically, if they're making progress in the subdivision completed, the phasing, and so on, normally there would be a recommendation for extending those subdivision approvals. In some cases, redesign is required. That's happened on a couple of occasions, and under that circumstance, the council may grant a 95-day extension to allow for the necessary redesign of the plat prior to concerning a full 24-month extension. So the second step in subdividing land is the submittal of a final plat. And that is submitted to the staff for review. We look at both the final plat as well as the final drainage report. Plat includes the exact dimensions and locations of all lots, parcels, rights-of-way, and easements. And And then also, within the last 2 to 3 years, we've included within the final plat resolution that the council approves a deadline for completion of all subdivision improvements. And depending on the size of the phase and the complicated nature of the improvements, this is ranged typically from 2 to 5 years. The developer must request a council approval. They need additional time that would be approved by council resolution. The final plat financial assurances have always had deadlines placed on them as well, for which the improvements were to be completed. If a developer intends to record a final plat prior to completion of all the required subdivision improvements, they are required to offer an assurance to the city of Kingman. There are two financial options that we allow within the subdivision ordinance. One is the cash escrow, and the other one is a letter of credit. And the amount is based upon 130% of the engineer's cost estimate approved by the city engineer. Another option that we recently reinstated in the subdivision ordinance is a property escrow method. It's a non-cash method. Basically, the subdivision is placed into a trust, usually with a title company, and they disallow any sale of any individual lots within the subdivision until all the improvements are completed. One can sell the entire subdivision, but they can't sell individual lots until all those improvements are completed. The exception would be sidewalks, which can be completed with a certificate of occupancy. That's been kind of a common practice in recent years to avoid the problem with breaking up sidewalks when a house is built on the property. So past practices, in the past, council resolutions approving final plats did not typically impose deadlines for completion of subdivision improvements if they are using a non-cash method, like a property escrow assurance, or if they are intending to do the improvements first and then record the plat. Currently, there are 7 subdivisions with 314 lots approved, but they are not recorded, that were approved between 1998 and 2006 that did not have a development deadline. All subdivisions in this category were approved with either a property escrow assurance or to have the improvements constructed prior to recording of the plat. There are 10 additional subdivisions with 470 lots that were recorded in 2005 and 2013, but did not have a development deadline other than what may be posed by the assurance agreements, if they have one. Today, all final plats resolutions, as I mentioned earlier, do feature a deadline by which improvements must be completed, regardless of the method of assurance, to avoid that loophole I described. Council approval is required, as I mentioned, for extension beyond the deadline. Also, under the subdivision regulations, council may vacate a final plat if no lots have been sold within 5 years of when it was recorded. Council may also revoke a final plat if none of the improvements have been completed in accordance with the assurance agreement that was entered in with the city. As a general policy, the staff has required developers seeking to resurrect some of these older subdivisions to come back and bring their plans back into us for a further staff review. In some cases, they've had to come back before the council for approvals to determine and make sure that they are in compliance with current development standards. So that ends my portion of the presentation. I don't know if we want to wait, ask questions after Greg's completed his portion.
I think I probably ask questions now since if anybody has some. I have one.
Okay.
Under the subdivision regulations, council may vacate a final plat if no lots have been sold within 5 years. How does the council know that no lots have been sold within 5 years? Is that brought back to the council for consideration?
Well, staff would have to let you know that there's been maybe an inactive subdivision and there's some circumstances by which we feel that there's a need to vacate that back to acreage, and we would have to bring the item before you for your consideration. There's specific noticing requirements and stuff in the subdivision. We'd have to let the owner know that was our intent to consider that, and we've not done that in the time I've been here. We have vacated a couple of subdivisions, but the owner has requested that occur. We haven't done it sort of in an adverse way.
It seems to me in my years here that there have been a lot of issues that have arisen because these plans have been very old and they were never looked at until, much later, many years later. And then they don't meet the standards that we have today, and or, well, we just haven't even had a chance to reconsider it. So what is being done to make sure that these subdivisions are looked at? We have an ongoing issue right now
Right.
with the development in Rancho. So what are we doing to assure that the developers come back to the city, make sure that if they've been that land's been sitting a long time, that they're going to have to meet today's standards. It's different if you're going into something that's already been started.
Right.
But if they're just starting from scratch 10 years after the fact, standards have changed.
That's true, and we have, as I mentioned, as a general policy, if we're contacted by a developer that is seeking to bring back a subdivision that's maybe only partially improved, or perhaps improvements haven't been done at all, we've asked them to bring back the plans for additional staff review. In some cases, we've had to take it back to the council because things have changed, but that's been our general approach to it.
Do we have the authority at this point, if we feel like, and of course, I've mentioned this several times, I'm really sensitive on this issue because I saw land that had sat for a long time near my house that I was in suddenly be developed and meeting no street standards, meeting nothing. They just built on dirt lots next to a subdivision that had sidewalks and streetlights. So do we have a way to not have that happen?
Right. So, and actually Greg's going to get into that discussion a little bit of these older subdivisions. We're talking about the ones that have been approved under the subdivision ordinance, which was adopted in 1983. We have lots of subdivisions in Kingman that recorded as much as close to 100 years ago.
Right.
And he will get into that discussion of how we're trying to deal with that situation a little bit. But that's a little different animal than talking about here.
Okay. Well, that's an animal we need to surround and make sure that we've got good ways to make sure that as things are built and subdivided, they meet current policies and practices. And another area that I'm wondering about in subdivisions is requirements for land usage for parks or other common space. That I know we've had some discussion on that in the past, but has that really evolved into anything that would make requirements of certain size developments to accommodate parks or things for, the community?
Right.
Because families want more than just, they need some space usually.
And there's discussion in the subdivision ordinance, and we follow the state regulations on that. If the city feels that a park space is necessary within a given area based upon maybe the general plan or a parks plan, there's a process, but the city has to essentially reserve that land through and essentially require that to be reserved. So there's a process to allow that to happen, but we have to follow state statutes on that process.
We follow state
It's a state,
statute.
yeah, right.
We can't create requirements for the city
Well,
that
we could. I mean, our subdivision ordinance doesn't really, there's not like a threshold by which you reach 200 lots and you have to create a park space. There's not that type of connection within their subdivision ordinance right now. It just, based upon state statutes, you can reserve land within the subdivision. City has to essentially acquire that property, kind of like you would acquire a parcel or.
I understand.
Right.
Yeah.
But we don't have that connection. That's probably something we could look at as part of the subdivision ordinance update, which would be separate from the zoning ordinance.
Okay, I think that would be a good thing to look at, and also requirements for water conservation elements within a subdivision. I think that would be something that would be good to look at also. Okay, did somebody else, Vice
Got questions if no one else did.
Vice Mayor?
Thanks, Rich. I'm not sure if it's addressed to you. The first one probably is addressed to you.
Okay.
The second one may be engineering, but So we're going through right now, the Kingman zoning ordinance is being comprehensively revised. Are you saying that the subdivision ordinance is from 1983?
It was originally adopted in '83. It has been amended over the years, like the zoning ordinance has, but it was
So-
originally adopted then.
So I guess my question is, we're going through this comprehensive revision with the zoning ordinance. How often does something like a subdivision ordinance get comprehensively revised in the same fashion?
We feel we need to do that next.
So this one
probably-
is,
Yeah, it probably needs to be done next, and some of the things that the Mayor mentioned was something that we'd want to look at.
right, because it just seems to me like if you were to go through some sort of a similar comprehensive revision, you could just wipe out all of these concerns and have a new ordinance that would make everybody happy. The second thing I would ask is, you mentioned that we have 7 subdivisions that are between 13 and 21 years old, and 10 subdivisions that are between 6 and 12 years old. And my question is, how do will serve letters factor into this for water and wastewater? I mean, in my opinion, it should be first developed, first served, right? But I don't know, if you got somebody that has a 21-year-old subdivision that was never recorded and they have a will serve letter for water and sewer, I mean, that doesn't make sense to me.
I'm going to let Greg answer that question. That is an engineering question.
Okay, any other questions, or do you want to go ahead and answer that now?
It's up to you.
Since that is, go ahead, let's hear the will serve.
So when we have a preliminary plat and that preliminary plat gets approved, they are generally showing certain water and sewer configuration for the lots. And once we issue that letter, it typically goes with the subdivision. And, unless that plat were to expire, then the will serve, I think, would expire with it. But absent that happening, once the preliminary plat's approved, essentially establishes their allotment of water and sewer for their subdivision.
So you're saying that's city council in the city, we don't have the authority to say, those will serve letters are separate, that it's whoever develops first gets served first. We can't say that.
We have a separate process for approving water service to subdivisions that goes through the utility commission and then ultimately through the city council. But typically, they're not giving a sunset. They're kind of approved generally after the plat's been approved, but they're not given a sunset date or an expiration date on them.
What's the best practice on those will serve letters? I mean, because it doesn't seem like it makes any sense to approve something 21 years ago and to be kind of tied by that commitment. Meanwhile, there might be other subdivisions that are much faster. They also need water and wastewater.
I think it's come up where we've had to we thought there was going to be enough capacity for certain water and sewer lines that are going to serve a development, and then additional development comes in beyond them, and
Yeah,
the need comes up to either relook at or
right.
replace some of the
And that's really the
downstream plants.
concern is you don't want to, we have X amount of capacity and you don't want to tie up your capacity in for 21 years if it's not going to get used, right?
That's correct.
It doesn't do anything for us.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
So perhaps something that gets looked at in the future is when subdivisions expire or have that expiration date, then the water and sewer gets expired with them.
That makes sense. That makes sense. Counselor Staley.
So I have 2 things now. It almost sounds like we should not allow these subdivisions if they're not built in 24 months, they should expire and almost go through the process again so that we're not running into these problems. Water, sewer, they're not meeting zoning, code, all these things. Do other cities do that? What?
I can't say I've really researched what other cities do with respect to subdivisions. I know it's been problematic, and
Sounds like it.
when we have older subdivisions and the improvements have been outdated, the water and sewer is fairly easy because there's some state statute, there's some state Arizona Administrative Code law on expiration dates for those, and we always include those. Street improvements are a little different, and when the standards change, the only one we've really had, I don't know if I want to use the word success, but any luck with getting developers to adhere to is the ADA stuff, because that's a federal standard. It's not even a city standard. So typically when the council approves a final plat, they're approving all those street improvements that go with that plat. There's no expiration. We have had success with getting the ADA standards adhered to because, again, that's something that Department of Justice requires. So.
But now we are putting expirations on the subdivisions.
Yep, as
Okay.
Rich mentioned.
So we won't run into this
Yep.
for those that we're doing now. Okay.
Okay. And then the other one is really just a comment as we talk about green spaces. The city is getting ready to do, to work with a consultant on a green space trails and parks plan. And so I would really hope that work will include looking at the open areas and maybe seeing if there are subdivisions where it would be ideal to have a park. There isn't one serving that area yet. If we're looking at that as we talk about maybe going forward and changing the way we do subdivisions and asking for more green spaces or trails or walking paths, I would hope that would be in that report. So I just want to.
Well, I think if you have the plan showing the parks, it's a lot easier for staff to recommend it and council to require it. When
Absolutely.
a subdivision comes in that area where the particular park might be on the map there, so.
Absolutely. I don't think it'll happen if it's not a part of that plan, which is what the council and future councils will be looking at in order to put in trails and parks. So I just want to put that out there to all the staff that's involved in that to make sure that we're looking at those areas as well, not just space that isn't currently occupied or that's city-owned. So that's all I had.
Any other questions? Yes, Counselor.
Actually, Rich and Greg, thanks for all this. Actually, a question back with Rich, and Greg, you might be able to answer it. When was, Rich mentioned that a revision is needed, a review of and revisions have been done in the past. When was the last revision of the subdivision ordinance?
Well, the last amendment to the subdivision was just recently that would allow the property for assurances.
Okay.
That was just a couple of months ago.
Okay.
But there hasn't been a full revision of the subdivision since it was.
So it's been ongoing that we've been making revisions,
We have.
trying to keep it current. Okay.
At least our thought process is that we would address this immediately after the zoning is completed. At the
Okay.
we would start that process.
Great. Thanks.
So I did have a brief PowerPoint to
Please go ahead.
follow Rich's fine PowerPoint on subdivisions, just to talk a little bit about how and when streets are improved. And I think I can go through it fairly quick. It's fairly brief. So to start with, there's basically the four governing documents here. The main one that engineering is in charge of, it includes really all the details of how wide the street is and how wide the sidewalks are and how thick the pavement is the Streets and Sidewalks Rules and Regulations. And it was originally adopted in March of 1992, and it has, as the subdivision ordinance, it has been updated up and through, I believe, last year as well. And subdivision ordinance and the land splitting regulations, they have their own kind of requirements for improving streets, but they typically refer to the Street and Sidewalk Rules and Regulations. And then there's the Kingman Area Transportation Plan that was adopted back in 2011, and it's more of a high-level document, guidance that just talks about when collector and minor arterial streets are and what the right-of-way should be for those. It also has some guidelines on medians and other street-related, traffic signals and other street-related items. So as far as the how and when streets are developed, I've got 6 listed here. Some of them are pretty obvious, but I'll go through briefly each method here. And you're already familiar with this, capital projects. Council thinks maybe there's a problem on Stockton Hill with too much traffic and we want to widen it, so we talk about that in the budget session and money gets budgeted for it and staff takes over, takes care of the council wishes at that point. So. Commercial development. So when a commercial property develops, they are required to improve the adjacent streets to their property up to the current city standards. And in this case, commercial development is defined as anything other than single family. So C1, C2, C3, I1, I2, industrial, and even the R2, R4, the duplexes and quadplexes are required to improve adjacent streets when Subdivisions, land splits, Rich probably covered this, but obviously when a person wants to subdivide their land, they do have to approve not only the adjacent streets, but all the interior streets as part of that subdivision process as well. The next one, I believe is what Mayor was alluding to earlier when we have development on, and Rich talked about some of the older platted subdivisions that were platted before the city was even a city. A lot of those were just what we call paper trails. And anytime someone develops in one of those subdivisions, and our Public Works Department has a maintained road list. Some of them are gravel, some of them might include partially paved street. But Jack Plante has this list, and if someone develops outside of that list on one of the paper streets, they are required to improve the street. And this would include everything from a commercial property all the way down to a single-family residential. So if someone building a house on a single-family residential street would be required to install the curb gutter and sidewalk and what we call the half-eight paving on the opposite side of the street. And really what that is for is to provide two-way traffic, enough paving for two-way traffic on the street. The other one on this is not only is the and the developer could be as like, again, a single-family home builder. They're not only required to improve property that is adjacent to their home they're building, but in the case of an unmaintained street, they would also have to build that curb gutter and sidewalk on that half of the street, all the way back to the nearest paved road. And this was an ordinance that was adopted just about 2.5 years ago, maybe mid part of 2016. It's one that really hasn't had the opportunity for application. There was one gentleman here who was building a single-family home out in the Camelback area, came before council, and that got tabled, so the whole street issue didn't get fully addressed at that meeting, but I would expect sometime, once he has his plans resubmitted, that will come back. I can assure you staff is actively talking about this ordinance and the impact and the interpretation of it. There's been some other requests from potential home builders who have asked, hey, if I build here, do I have to improve the street? And they've been told, yeah, according to our interpretation of this ordinance, yes. So this one, I potentially could see there will be some more discussion at a future council meeting on. Moving on to special taxing districts. These are improvement districts or community facilities districts. Without getting into all the details and all the intricate processes of how these work, if I can even say the word, I'll just to let you know, these are another means to get city and streets improved, and the city has done several over the years, some of them in some of the older subdivisions that have worked out quite well. I believe we even did one in Carl's subdivision many, many years ago. So the other final one I have here is a special council ordinance. This hasn't been used very, very often, but if there's a street out there that council wants to really get improved, pass an ordinance that states that anytime someone develops on that street, they have to improve the street to current standards. And this, I can only think of one example, a couple streets where this has been done, Western Avenue and Golf Drive over just north of Gates Avenue, near the golf course. This has been done there. The other thing that can be done under Arizona statute is the city council can budget for and decide to improve that particular street that wants to get improved and fund the money essentially in advance, in which case the staff would then create the designs, procure, get the construction completed, and then the council can assess those properties so that when they come in and pick up their building permit, apply for a building permit, then they would be assessed that dollar amount. And it's prorated, and the council would ultimately have to approve that. But the other thing about that is the assessments are only good for a 10-year period for statute, so.
How long has this been in effect, the special council ordinance?
Well, it's Arizona Revised Statute 9-243, I don't know when the last time, when that particular one was
Well,
amended.
I guess the point is, again, I'm thinking about how does council know if, that someone's about to start building on an undeveloped street and act on this prior to the development happening, and then it's past the time that you can act on this. So I think we need to consider that in further discussion, because a lot of this, I think we would want to act on if we knew about it in advance.
Well, and 2 slides back, if they're developing on an undeveloped street, then the current ordinance, which was adopted under Ordinance 1813 back in May of 2016, I believe, would kick in. That is part of the streets and sidewalk development rules and regulations.
Does it, but does it apply to grandfathered? So is anything
Yes.
grandfathered under it?
No. The only thing that's grandfathered was what was included when Ordinance 1813 was adopted by Jack's current list of streets that he maintains. So anything that's not on his maintained list, which in essence is an unmaintained street, that if they develop on that street, would have to approve the
Okay, thank you.
So this is one, let's just, if there were a street out there, ABC Street, I won't
Yeah.
pick the one, but if you want to improve ABC Street, you could adopt this so that, and maybe it's already a maintained paved road, in which case the previous ordinance wouldn't necessarily kick in, although that's part of this discussion that staff is still having. But it's already a maintained road, but maybe it's not improved to the full standard.
Right,
So that's where this special council ordinance could come into.
okay, thank you. Sure.
So I have 2 questions. The other day I was driving down a street, I think it's the Golden Gate area, and one side of the street is paved and the other side is paved like halfway down, and then the rest is dirt.
Yes.
And there's several houses on the dirt side. If a neighborhood or homeowners live on a dirt road and they want to get it paved, what is the process for them to do that?
The primary process would be to come to the council or come to the staff first and request an improvement district.
So they create their own improvement district. If you live on a street, and then how is that assessed? Is it only the people who live on the dirt portion on that side of the street, or is it everybody on the street?
So there would be an assessment engineer that determines that, and it's based on who benefits, who receives the improvements. So maybe the street's in bad condition and all the pavement has to come out, in which case you assess only the one side for the new pavement, assuming the curb and gutter is already in good shape. And then the other side would get assessed for not only the new pavement, plus the new curb and gutter, plus any other drainage facilities or anything else that might be included with that.
And then the mayor was talking about these entire streets that aren't paved, they're dirt. Do they get to decide they want only pavement, or do they have to go by the standards and then they need sidewalks and curbs and gutter and pavement?
So the way the current ordinance reads, when someone develops on unmaintained street, they have to put the curb and gutter and sidewalk.
Okay, even though they already live there, they just want their street paved. They need to do everything.
Oh, well,
I mean,
yes.
yeah, and
If we're going to do an improvement district,
Right.
my recommendation would be we do it and try and make it to the current standard, assuming we can with right-of-way constraints and other things that might
Good.
occur.
Okay, good. And I just had one other question. I believe there is a street that runs parallel to Stockton Hill on the east side. I believe it's Glen, and I think that it's on our capital improvements project list. And at one point, the city I know went through the trouble of getting right of way and everything. And then I'm assuming that we didn't have the funds to do that. So is that something that the city could continue with and then create and assess the property owners, pave it, assess the property owners, and then move forward with that project and get it off the capital improvements list?
Absolutely.
Has that been considered for that street?
Yes, absolutely.
It has.
Well, it's been on the capital project list. I believe it kind of fell, maybe the priority was lower. It's not, to my knowledge, there's certainly nothing budgeted in our current budget for Glen Road.
There isn't.
It's probably listed at best as a future project at this point, but if council deems that an important project to get done, it could be something that is budgeted for, and then we can go through the special council ordinance and we could build it and then put the assessments out there.
Okay. Well,
Information.
can I ask one
Yes, one
follow-up to
more.
that? Okay,
We
well,
are
this is
going to
it.
have to move along.
I'm sorry. So recently, we decided to go 2 lanes instead of 4 lanes as part of the project to connect from the Rattlesnake Rancho Santa Fe over. So to get 4 lanes, could we assess property owners for that additional lane now to build it in 4 lanes, and the city doesn't have to cover that cost, or no?
Well, the way it would get assessed is the city would build it, and then we would portion the cost out, and then council has an assessment hearing to establish those final costs, and people have a chance to come and their voice known at those meetings. The concern I would have with that is those assessments are only good for 10 years. So if we didn't anticipate any building permits coming in within 10 years, I would probably recommend against it, because that particular area, if we're talking Kingman Crossing Boulevard, where we went 4 to 2,
Yes.
they're going to likely have to subdivide that land, and during the subdivision process, they would have to widen the street at that point.
Okay. All right, that's it. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Okay, and I just had some other information from our street policy that talks about street widths and things like that, but I know there's more.
We have one more report. We probably could have spent the whole time on this, but we have to be finished by 10 till. So perhaps
Thank
we'll bring that back at another time. Thank you very much. Okay. Mr. Kellogg, update on Economic Development Strategic Plan, Master Plan. And I'll just go ahead and say that given the time constraint we're under for the activity we have, we may have to divide this into 2 parts depending on its length.
We'll get this just a second.
Or maybe we'll just,
Show.
Okay.
'cause it looks like a great update. We just, but,
All
you
right.
know, we just may have to do that.
Your Honor, Vice Mayor, members of the council, you're right. This is a big report, but it was big to start with. So what I really wanted to start out with is really kind of talk just for a second and tell you about the team size that was to create this. And that is, we'll kind of walk through things, but you know, the team really consisted of myself, Bennett Bradley. We did have Sylvia Schaefer for part of the time, and then Sandy. So when you, as we went back through this and began to look at everything all over again and look at the accomplishments, even I was overwhelmed. I went, oh my God, we really do all this stuff. So with that, I'd like to walk through it, and I think you're right, Mayor, that we need to nip this about 10 of, and then we can split it. More than likely get through most of the economic development stuff, but pick up the tourism.
Thank you.
Okay. Okay, I'm just going to lay the foundation a little bit here. I'm not going to really read all of this, but this was really kind of how it started in 17, and then there was a delay waiting on the new city manager and the economic development person, and then I arrived full-time on the scene, or became a full-time city employee in May, and then in June, the new hires were in place, and then Shaven was authorized to proceed, and then in 2018, the ED plan was completed and approved. Again, I don't need to read every part of it, but the plan was really a culmination of a collaborative endeavor to identify the city of Kingman's assets and challenges and create strategies for mitigating challenges and taking advantage of the opportunities. Each strategy contains actions to be undertaken and accomplished, etc. Okay? The most important thing is here, the plan represents 25 different strategies. And so as I walk you through, some of these are completed, some are still in process, some of the teams are still being formed. But you'll see the groundwork that has been laid and the things that are completed. Okay? At the top of each one of these slides, you will see the strategy as Chabon had laid it out for us, and this was to adopt a city vision and economic development goals. The Economic Development Department worked with the Advisory Commission, and this came as a result of the 23rd Vision and Goal setting. And the mission was, our mission is to enhance, or to enrich the area's economic, create high-paying quality jobs, foster development of trained workforce, expand the industrial base, enhance the economic development associated with tourism, increase the per capita income, and improve the quality of life for Kingman residents. With that, we also, I'll give you a second to look over the vision statement. It sort of really does speak for itself. I think one of the most important things we did here too was we also included what was going to happen to our historic downtown, so that became an integral part of the planning. The Commission is recommending the following goals. And so what we did is we developed, well, along with the Advisory Commission, a set of goals, and these will be the guidelines that we will follow as we proceed on with the economic development package here. Sustained funding that supports a collaborative and aggressive economic development program, well-educated workforce, and I know that the Vice Mayor and you, Mayor, were at the meeting the other day with the college, and I now also sit on the advisory board for the workforce development, and it's key to everything that we do. You okay with me moving ahead? This will all be made available
Yes,
to you too.
yes, we do need to have it available.
Establish and empower action teams for the strategy. The staff was agendized strategy 2, and this is the upcoming EDA Commission meeting, which will be held next week. Discussions will include reports to the Commission, and our Commission reports now will be based on where we stand in relationship to this economic development strategy. And so as I go through it, you will see that we will be picking out key points to make sure we're letting them know. Publicize and promote tasks accomplished, and mobilize programs for implementation. Create action teams, and this has happened and it is still ongoing. Strategy C is strengthen the communication. We've been able to do pretty good on this, but one of the things that we're going to do now is, as staff, will be coordinating, now that we have a PIO in place, and working with the city manager to see how we continue to put the story out there. As you know, in economic development, one of the toughest things is Bennett and I will receive inquiries all the time. We really can never share anything because it may not become reality, and we don't want to take people on a false trip. And the other one is, it gets closer for a lot of these folks, is that the decision is up to them when they want to tell their story. But we still have a good story to tell on what we've been doing, so, okay. Leadership training and economic development. Beyond that of what we will do with staff and everything, this slide is to really to tell you, because one of the things that I think last year that was highly beneficial was the group that we sent to Main Street. You know, we benefited a lot of people beyond staff and put tools in their hands. And so from now on, one of the things that we'll be doing, we'll be including a commissioner with the AAED, with the Arizona Association of Economic Development, in the fall forum. We'll include a commissioner also in the spring conference, okay? We're also including a commissioner on our ICSC visits in Las Vegas, and these are the big ones for the shopping center stuff and the retail. Also a commissioner at the Arizona Governor's Conference of Tourism will join Josh and his staff, so that again, you know, the commission, we have somebody on the commission who also see what we're doing, and also I think commissioner to go with us to the local first conferences. And I know that Councilman Staley attended the last one, but I think it's important that we have always somebody from the commission on these visitations. Okay, improve the first impressions by eliminating neglected properties. This is pretty exciting. The newly formed Code Enforcement Committee will have an opportunity to review this strategy. So the committee members are from Public Works, Fire, Building Safety, Planning and Zoning, and the Public Information Officer. So this, as we began to go forward on this, was to address some of those things that Chabon said, you know, these are really kind of eyesores in the community, and what are you going to do about them? So this will be the base group that will operate from. Update the zoning and development code. You've heard a lot about this. As you know, Lisa Weiss was hired in July of 2019, and a stakeholder meeting was held in July, and an initial audit was completed in September. A public workshop was hosted later in September, and the new zoning ordinances are scheduled for completion in December of 2020. So again, we as a community certainly and as a city have invested a lot of money, and I know that both Sylvia and Rich are babysitting this. They meet on a weekly basis, by the way, or I'm sorry, every 2 weeks with the consultant by phone just to keep track of it. But with that, I also would like to introduce our newest one, Gary Blackman. Gary has been with us for about 2 weeks and joined us from great state of New Mexico, and we're tickled to have him. He's fully credentialed, and he was able to hit the ground running. So he will eventually, as we phase Sylvia, transition Sylvia out, we will be, this will be Sylvia's replacement. So, but we're not moving fast on that one. We want to make sure we do a good job on both things, so. Okay, increase and stabilize the city revenues by building a tax base. This really kind of falls a little bit beyond our purview, but consider establishing mechanisms that capture revenue, et cetera. And we certainly know that the city council, the city manager, and the finance department are really looking at this all the time, and that your citizen surveys are addressing this. But as was noted, this was a part of what Chapin saw when they looked at us and the community as a whole. Expand the staff and supplement economic development and marketing budget. Department's hired an administrative coordinator at the airport, and she splits her time between the air side with Steve Johnson and then Bennett on the economic development side. And then Sylvia has been promoted to the position of economic development, specializing in retail and commercial, and has already hit the ground running. Sylvia will, with next month, be also starting the Arizona Association of Economic Developers training course for ED persons. The branding contract was awarded to Geo and Associates. The stakeholders meetings will take place in December. You all will be receiving notices shortly. We just finished up the invitation and stuff with Geo and identified all the key stakeholders in the community. So we'll go through a similar set of meetings as we did with the planning and zoning. We've hired a retail consultant. When you have a small team, I think it's really best that you look out and find experts who can really pound the pavement for you. So we did an awful lot of research, and I think we've come up with a really good person, so that no matter where the retail shows are or whatever, we will have representation. The city of Kingman will have a foot in the door. And we just today finished up looking at an aviation consultant for the very same reason, that it was time, not only on the industrial side of the park, but what's it going to take and what do we have to do to have more attraction, be able to attract people on the air side. Believe it or not, there's not a lot of those folks, but we did find a good one. Implement a business retention and expansion program. Staff created a database, or staff creates a database for the sectors at the airport, contact information. One of the things that we've gone and make sure is we've met with the employers out there. We have a great relationship. In fact, one of the national companies that took over a few months ago, one of the companies that was purchased, Bennett was able to be their ombudsman and guide them through permitting processes with both the county and with the city. I just got a few more minutes here.
Two.
We also make 2 minutes to be exact. Yeah, make necessary referrals to partner agencies, and staff is also looking into a compensation survey now. We've had the people at the industrial park query us not only beyond the labor thing, which we'll be doing, we're undertaking right now, the labor study, but also compensation to benchmark what other plants are doing. So this may be the best place to cut it off.
Okay. Are there any quick questions? We have about
Mayor
1 minute.
Miles, I would just say, for a department that we just formed in, what, 2017?
Yeah, it's pretty young.
It's tremendous, and I think that we have the most robust economic development program in Mojave County, certainly of all three of the cities where, I mean, this speaks volumes. Thank you.
Yeah, it's exciting every day. I know Ben and I just had another one the other day, looking at 30 to 50,000 square. And so you go, all right, something happens, another door opens. All right.
Thank
I
you
will
so
pick it up
much.
then.
Thank you so much, Gary. Okay, we'll pick that up at the next meeting. And at this point, I'm going to adjourn this meeting, and we'll convene again at 6 o'clock for the regular meeting.
You didn't have to send that to us now?
Good evening, and welcome to the regular meeting of the Kingman Common Council on Tuesday, November 19th, 2019, at 6 o'clock. Could we have a roll call, please?
Mayor Miles,
Here.
Vice Mayor Lingenfelter,
Here?
Councilmember Nelson. Here. Councilmember Scott Staley,
Present.
Councilmember Watkins,
Here?
Councilmember Waite,
Here.
Councilmember Mello Keener is excused this evening. We have a quorum.
Thank you. Tonight, we'll have an invocation given by Mr. Cal Brostrom of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, and I would ask everyone to stand and remain standing for the Pledge of Allegiance. Thank you.
Our kind Father in heaven, God of us all, we're grateful and thankful tonight to meet in these circumstances. We're thankful for the many blessings that we have as a part of this wonderful community. We're thankful for the prosperity that we've been blessed with, and recognizing at the same time that there are those who are less fortunate among us that we need to constantly watch and care for. We're thankful for those who have been chosen to lead us here in this city, and pray that thy Spirit would bless them with wisdom and with all that they need to continue to guide our growth and the love and acceptance that we would like to see here in this community. We're also grateful for the rain that we've received today, that is much needed here. We pray that thy Spirit would bless all the proceedings this evening, and that the things that are accomplished will benefit all the citizens of this area. Grateful for these things, and say this in the name of our Savior, Jesus Christ. Amen.
Amen.
Amen. Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance to our nation's flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Thank you. The council may go into executive session for legal counsel in accordance with ARS 38-431-03A3 to discuss any agenda item. The following items may be discussed, considered, and decisions made relating thereto. Our first topic tonight is awards and recognition, and we are going to take this opportunity to issue a proclamation regarding Small Business Saturday. And that takes place on November 30th, and I understand that our Chamber CEO, Becky Fossen, is here and will accept this proclamation after it is for presentation. First, I'm going to read it, and it says, Proclamation, whereas the City of Kingman, Arizona celebrates our local small businesses and the contributions they make to our local economy and community, and whereas since 2010, the Saturday after Thanksgiving has been designated as Small Business Saturday, a designation that has been embraced nationally. And whereas according to the United States Small Business Administration, there are currently 30.2 million small businesses in the United States that create the majority of new U.S. jobs. And whereas 92% of consumers in the United States say Small Business Saturday has had a positive impact on their community, and 89% consumers who are aware of Small Business Saturday says the day encourages them to shop small all year long. And 83% of consumers who reportedly shop small at independently owned retailers and restaurants on Small Business Saturday did so with friends and family. And Kingman, Arizona supports our local businesses that create jobs, boost our local economy, and preserve our communities. And now, therefore, I, Jen Miles, Mayor of the City of Kingman, do hereby designate Saturday, November 30th, 2019 as Small Business Saturday, and urge the residents of our community and the communities across the country to support small businesses and merchants on Small Business Saturday and throughout the year. And I would like Ms. Fossen to come up, please, and we will make the presentation. And council, you are welcome to join me, because we are all supporters of small business.
That's why I think you should.
Okay. Call to the public, comments from the public. Those wishing to address the council should fill out request forms in advance. Action taken as a result of public comments will be limited to directing staff to study the matter or rescheduling the matter for consideration and decision at a later time. Comments from the public will be restricted to items not on the agenda with the exception of those on the consent agenda. There will be no comments allowed that advertise for a particular person or group. Comments should be limited to no longer than 3 minutes. And we have one person that has signed up to speak, and that is C. Russell. Please come forward.
Good evening, Mayor, Vice Mayor, Council, staff. Here tonight to kind of remind the council that this Thursday, day after tomorrow, is the Clean City Commission's November meeting. And in the vernacular of one of our kindergartners, he said, it's the funnest meeting of the year. And believe me, it is the funnest meeting of the year. It's probably the only time that a commission meeting will absolutely fill this room, standing room only, and people are waiting out in the hallway. And the reason being is that every year at this time we have a contest for the middle schools for recycling posters and essay contests from kindergarten to the 8th grade. This year it was kindergarten through 6th grade, but the kindergartners will color a photo or a drawing in a coloring book. The older ones will actually create their own posters, and this year the 6th graders did a acrostic poem from the word recycle. And so we will be awarding them their awards this Thursday night. And it's really worthwhile if you have an hour extra to spend from 5:30 until 6:30. We can usually get it done in an hour to watch these children. It goes from the total bashful hiding behind their parents to the anxious ones to get up and get the picture taken with the mayor. And so if you can come, it's worthwhile, believe me, to see their faces. Thank you.
Thank you so much. We appreciate very much what you and the commission are doing. There are no other people signed up to speak at call to the public, so let's move to the consent agenda. All matters listed here are considered to be routine by the City Council and will be enacted by one motion. There will be no separate discussion of these items. If discussion is desired, that item will be removed from the consent agenda and will be considered separately. Do any of the council members want to remove anything from the consent agenda? Not tonight. No. All right. Given that, I would entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda, items A through F.
I'll second that.
We have a motion and a second to approve the consent agenda, items A through F. All in favor, aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Ayes have it. Motion carries. We have no old business tonight, so we'll move forward to new business. Basically, item A is resolution number 5248, supporting the continuance of Amtrak train service. Adoption of resolution number 5248, supporting the continuance of Amtrak train service to and from rural communities, and staff recommends approval. Now, there are copies of the resolution with the agenda, so hopefully you've had a chance to look at that. I would like to let you know that we had a meeting here in the council with representatives from a coalition that are supporting continuance of a national passenger train service, and it was well attended. Perhaps not as full house as what see Russell talked about, but it was a full house here. And people were very, very concerned about the train continuing to serve Kingman.
Yep.
And so we decided to go ahead and put this on for the council to vote on. And if approved, we will send it to the delegation of our Congress that represents Kingman to let them know that we'd like them to support legislation to continue our national passenger train service. And so,
Mayor?
yes, sir. Would you like
It's-
to comment on this?
Yes,
City
thank
Manager?
you. Appreciate that. So this is in support of continuing funding at the federal level for passenger rail. We just want to make sure that everybody understands that the explanation that was given at the meeting that the mayor referred to was that there are some that have suggested that passenger rail is not important and should not receive funding from the federal government. And I think that the numbers speak differently to that, and the fact that our air service, much of our passenger airline service receives a large contribution from the federal government. And so basically in all forms of transportation that are subsidized, this subsidy makes perfect sense. And we have a number of folks in our community that utilize the rail, and it's not just for nostalgia. So just wanted to make sure pass that along as well, because this isn't just a matter of train service where it's, hey, let's go take a train ride because it's something fun to do. People are actually using this form of transportation, and the federal funding is critical to that. So
I think we mentioned in here, but if we didn't, yes, there are over 9,000 passengers that get on and off the train in Kingman every year. So that's quite an impact and we need to continue it. Are there any comments, discussion? Then I would entertain a motion to approve resolution number 5248.
I move we approve resolution number 5248.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve resolution number 5248. All in favor, aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, nay? Ayes have it, motion carries unanimously. Thank you. The next order of business is resolution number 5250, opposing the transfer of fourth priority Colorado River water. Resolution 5250 says the same thing, opposing the transfer of fourth priority Colorado River water. It's actually from GSC Farms LLC to the town of Queen Creek. Staff recommends approval. Now, this resolution, I've probably had a chance to look at. Tomorrow, there is a meeting in Bullhead City at which the Department of Water Resources has requested public comment on this transfer of water from a farm actually in La Paz to Queen Creek, more to a municipal area, metropolitan area. So they are taking public comment. If passed, we will take this down. I will take it down tomorrow and present it to DWR on our behalf and join our sister cities of Bullhead and Lake Havasu and the county in opposing this transfer because it really sets a precedent that we do not want, and it's just important to support the river cities, even though we don't rely on the Colorado River ourselves. So, did you want to add something else?
Yeah, Mayor covered it pretty well. Just this is really a resolution of support for our neighbors. The transfer of this water, if allowed, would really basically cripple Bullhead and Havasu maybe to a point where they would be unable to grow into the future. So this is really the future of Bullhead and Havasu. And so really, obviously, this doesn't affect us, but in showing support for our sister cities in the region, we can hope for the same kind of support back our way when we have water issues that we're dealing with. And believe me, over the years, we will look for them to support us in ours, so.
Any questions, comments?
this is not the first time we've seen something like this that's tried to occur, and it's not the last time it's going to happen either. So all of the communities that are in Mojave County and the county together, we need to really be in lockstep in defending against our water, against interbasin transfers and any other sort of a water shift. It's only going to get stranger. And thankfully, we have the water committee that our mayor is on to protect us.
Oh, which will be meeting December 9th in Phoenix, FYI. So, okay,
I just had a real quick question.
Yes,
I
please.
apologize.
no, don't.
As part of the resolution, it does suggest that part of what we would be, not approving of is transfers of water entitlements from small river communities to benefit metropolitan areas which have alternative water supplies available to them. And I assume, do we know what water resources they have currently? Do they have also, kind of what we use, which is, underground basins
No.
or anything? Or what
They're,
access-
manager
both those communities use only surface water at this time.
Okay.
Yep.
And what are they doing right now? Like where? Are
Well, they have shares, so basically, the rights that they have right now cover them with a little bit of growth. But any substantial growth beyond where they are, they would need this fourth level of water to be able to
Okay.
do that.
That's why
So,
they're
yep.
reaching out
Yep.
or trying to.
Right, so basically what the attempt is to sell this water off or to transfer out of the river to a larger metropolitan city, Queen Creek in this case, so that they can grow right now, and that would inhibit Bullhead from growing in the future.
Which would, over time, effectively dry up, communities where
Well,
the water
it-
actually is.
It
by
wouldn't
bringing-
dry them up, it would just stop their growth. There'd be a point to where
They can no longer.
they could have 60,000 residents in the current businesses, and they would just have to put up a wall and say, this is it.
Okay.
Yep.
Does that answer your question, or were you asking
Yes.
about Queen
No,
Creek?
that was, no,
Oh,
that
you
was,
were asking about Bullhead and Havasu.
what's that?
You were asking about Bullhead and Havasu.
No, I was specifically referring to the creek in, what motivation they had for expanding their water horizon. So I think it was
Okay.
properly explained.
Good. Any other questions, comments? I would entertain a motion to approve resolution number 5250 regarding opposition of the transfer of fourth priority Colorado River water I will say we must correct that. It's actually from GSC Farms LLC to the town of Queen Creek. And with that amendment, I would entertain a motion.
I motion that we adopt resolution number 5250.
Second that.
There's a motion and a second to adopt resolution number 5250. All in favor, aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Ayes have it unanimously. Thank you. Okay, department reports, Parks and Recreation Department report.
Thank you, Mayor. At our last council meeting, I believe it was Councilor Nelson who had asked about having a work session regarding the firefighters park disc golf, part of the what happens at firefighter park. And in talking with Mike, it wasn't a big enough item to have on a work session, so we thought that we would cover that in just a department report. And in looking at what's happening in Mike's area of responsibility, we wanted to cover a couple of other things. So we want to make sure that you're able to check off that your request. We'll just do it in a department report tonight. And then we're going to also cover with you a little bit about what's happening at Sunbelt Park. And also, we want to cover a little bit about the grant that is, that we've been waiting for on White Cliffs Trail. And so and I've asked Mike to give you a quick report on those things. And of course, we're happy to answer any questions. So, Mike?
Thank you.
Good evening, Mayor, Vice Mayor, Council. Staff, I got a little PowerPoint and we'll go over it. Basically, to start off, I guess I will talk about the, Councilmember Scott Staley mentioned the Parks, Recreation, Open Space Trails Master Plan. That's all been signed and the dotted lines are all signed and we're getting ready to work on that. So that's moving forward quickly. Our department's busy and trying to get all that taken care of, get the public outreach meeting set up. So we're excited about that. And City Manager Foggen mentioned the Arizona State Parks and Trails Grant. That's gone from $14,000 to $43,000. And it's in the hands of ADOT right now. So we still don't have the official start work order, but I did call them today and they said they're gonna try to push them along on it, but it is a challenge to get everything done quickly. But, and I had talked to Matt Driscoll at BLM, and he said the same thing. It's challenging waiting for those grants to be approved. And they have to dot all the i's and cross all the t's. So they're working on that for us. I also want to just touch on our recreation division. They've been busy with the parade, the festival, all of our fall sports. This past weekend, we had 2 dance recitals with 223 participants, and that was very good, and they did a great job. I'm very proud of the job they did. And then I've got some more slides, but the Firefighters Park I have slides about, and Surbat Cliffs Golf Course and the disc golf. I've got a couple slides, and then we'll get into Sunbelt Park. Basically, Firefighters Park, the Kingman Disc Golf Club has installed those baskets and the tees over the years. They've done all the work on it and taken care of it and moved them as they see where they want them. And they did remove one, the 9th basket, because it was close to where the playground was being moved to. And they just took it out and didn't put it back in until you brought it to our attention. And I contacted them and we met with them and went out and reviewed the park with them. And our parks maintenance team ended up putting a new tee in for them and installing the basket where we all agreed. So I think they're really happy with how it's working, and I think it's going to be really nice going forward. And a lot of them are going to the golf course and playing too, so it's kind of exciting. And then they go there to practice. So a lot of good going on with disc golf right now. Basically, the golf course, I'll just touch on that briefly. It's been a very good year at the golf course. A lot of positives, a lot of positive comments from the golfers. Really proud of the job that Greg Prudhom's done, and Patrick Friend and their teams have done a great job working together. And they're just doing a really good job of trying different specials and trying to get people out there. And obviously, the disc golf is one of the things that we're trying, and it's working out very well. We've been getting a lot of positive comments from the disc golfers that come out there, and there's a lot of repeat play. And the majority of the play with disc golf is on the weekends. As a matter of fact, the Kingman Disc Golf Club has a disc golf event this coming Sunday, and there's entrants from Phoenix, from Las Vegas, from Flagstaff, and they're expecting over 50 people to participate in this. So it's kind of exciting. It's like we've told you before, it's at a slower time on the tee sheet that they do play. And we really haven't had a lot of negative comments from our golfers either. I mean, I'm sure there have been some, but haven't heard very many. So we're really pleased with how it's going so far. And the word's getting out about the fact that we have disc golf at our golf course right now. We've gotten contact from several other golf courses in Arizona asking how it's working for us. And so far, it's really working well. We'll get into Sunbelt Park real quickly here, and obviously this is the location and the status of the park. Our park maintenance team has cleared all the woody materials off of the site and working to clean everything up and get it ready for the grading and earthwork to begin. We've had meetings with, the city manager and I have had meetings with Desert Construction regarding the grading and earthwork, and J2 Engineering is working on the plans for irrigation, grading, and drainage. And this picture shows there's some challenges, like unforeseen challenges, that have kind of forced us to look hard at the project and make some project changes, so to speak. And basically, this shows the off-site water flows. And this information in this report is from two different reports that we have. One of them's 85 pages and the other one's 25 pages. And if anybody would like more information on this, I'd be happy to share it with them. But what this shows is that there's more water flow going across that park property than what flows into Monsoon Park. And that really surprised me, and it surprised the architects. It surprised everybody that there's that much flow going across there that's got to be dealt with. And so, and the other challenge with that flow, unlike Monsoon Park water is pretty clean, relatively speaking, because of all the subdivisions that have been built up there between the mountains. And this water has a lot of silt in it, which will be another challenge that will have to be dealt with. So what's in the works right now, we're working on a IGA between the city of Kingman and the Kingman Unified School District. City Manager Foggin and myself met with Gretchen Dorner, the superintendent of Kingman Unified School District, and the engineering department, and I met with Wayne Munt. He's the new facilities manager there, to review this project with them. This is going to be on the school board's December meeting, and then we'll come back to this council for a vote as well. But we're really hopeful that it goes forward. If you look at the map there, the yellow area is a 6-acre parcel that belongs to the schools. And in this project, we would end up constructing a channel. If you look at this, on the west side of the property, you see where the drainage channel would go. It would go around to the east of our property, and then along the north and to the east of the Kingman Unified School District property. And that will end up giving us, we're going to lose the little space in the back corner because where the channel's got to go, and then we'll gain the property from the Kingman Unified School District property. So we'll have another full-size soccer field there, and as well as a smaller soccer field, which is on the next slide. This shows the drainage channel. It's basically going to be 4 feet deep. The water flow will be 3 feet deep. It's 3,700 feet long, this channel is. And it's 70 feet wide at the top. So it's 30 feet wide at the bottom and a 4-to-1 slope on the sides. This kind of shows basically the channel, where it will go and where we'll gain the additional soccer fields. And if you notice, the soccer field on the northeast corner is going to be turned the other way. That full-size soccer field, there used to be 2 full-size soccer fields going the opposite direction there. But now with that channel being there, it has to go turn sideways, and we'll make it up on the other school's property. So we're really confident that it's going to be a good project still, but it's surprised us about the water flow, how much it was. When you hear about Monsoon Park and you look at that water, how that fills up, it's a lot of water that goes across that property. So, and I think with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions or.
Is there any way to capture that water? A dry well?
If we could build a big Monsoon Park there, but then you wouldn't have the really nice soccer fields and everything. So, I mean, I think with the property that we have, that's the choice is basically, do you want to have really nice, and then, you know, there's property upstream from that eventually more things like that could be looked at, I suppose. And we will have to capture some of it for a period of time to get the silt. Because like I said, this water has a lot of silt in it, and it's going to be a challenge.
Vice Mayor?
Correct me if I'm wrong, but all that water, it's coming down from the Wallapies. And I know that we've looked in the past at Nick Hunt did some modeling, and he said that if we created some sort of a water retention basin system way up by the interchange, that you could capture all that water and you'd alleviate the flooding problems and everything else downstream. For whatever reason, it seemed like it fell off the plan, but
I think they're still looking.
I think it still needs to be looked at.
So
Correct me.
So this water is not part of Rattlesnake Wash. This is a different wash, and the county does have a drainage plan up above at the foothills of the Wallapies with no predicted funding mechanism for them. So
I know in the airway vicinity there, didn't we just approve a contract where it had a drainage component where they were going to be doing some design work?
Yeah.
Would that factor into this whole area as well?
So we're going to have to deal with drainage under airway at that location. but it's where you're talking about, Vice Mayor, is farther to the east.
Okay,
But yeah, Airway will have to deal with this flow as well. But the capture and what we're doing as part of Rancho Santa Fe interchange and the development that's happening more on the east, that east flow.
great. Thank you.
Yep.
The area that you're talking about is right close to where it's 331, where it's the corner where the fire station's gonna go. That's the area that you're referring to in there. And there's some thought that possibly some of the water that we're talking about is gonna alleviate some of that problem there as well, so.
Yeah. Well, I'm with the mayor. If you somehow capture that, it goes into our strategy for the city. Good idea.
Okay, any other questions, comments? Thank you so much, Mike. It's really exciting to see these parks evolving and coming into being, and the trails. Now we will move to announcements by mayor, council members, and city manager, and we'll start with Mr. Foggin.
Thank you, Mayor. As promised, update on the census activities that we've been undertaking over the last 2 weeks since reported on this. I'm happy to report that we've met with several of the school leadership groups and have had discussions about how the schools can help educate the kids and take the census information home to their parents. And we have really great responses from the leadership team talking about the fact that they are planning and are willing to implement the census in the school, SIS. Oh, no, statistics in the school? Yeah, statistics in schools, that's right, SIS. And that's a curriculum that matches pretty much everything. They've worked in census into math, into history, they have curriculum pieces that any teacher, no matter what subject matter, which is really, really cool. And like I said, the principals and the superintendents have been really positive about it. So we're excited about working with the schools. And the other thing that we got back this week, or I guess it was the end of last week, was the logos that we asked the high school, Lee Williams High School, to develop for us. Students did a great job. The advanced graphic design kids really provided some really cool logos for us. We picked one in particular that's kind of going to be our go forward one. So look for that. And then finally, we have our presentation built, and just want to put it out to the community that our complete count task force is prepared and willing to make presentations to community groups. So if you run into somebody that has a group and we can provide a presentation, we would love to do that. The presentation is prepared, and I think it's good and informational and succinct, and I think people will appreciate it. So that's my census update for this council meeting. And the other thing would be, it's been a while. I need to just thank my team for just being great. As the rains are headed our way, a few drops dropped on me on my way here, just as a reminder that there's a good chance that we'll have our teams, both public safety and public works, out at night and dealing with potential flooding. And I want to thank them and encourage everybody to be careful with the weather change that we are having. So thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Councilor Watkins.
I have nothing, Mayor. Thank you.
Councilor Wade.
I have nothing.
Staley.
Yeah, I just wanted to say in partnership with the small business proclamation that you just gave, that the Kingman Main Street is hosting a Shop Small event in downtown Kingman on November 30th, and there's free shopping canvas bags, and the shops will be open, and they're all doing fun little things, so please make sure you stop stopping downtown when you're shopping on Shop Small Saturday. Thank you.
Try that again, okay. Counselor Nelson, okay. Vice Mayor?
Let's see. So next week, in a week, next Tuesday, there's 2 commission meetings if you're interested. There's the Economic Development Advisory Commission meeting, and also there's a Historical Preservation Commission meeting, which I'm the liaison to both. And look forward to great discussions with those. And I'm sure you're going to mention the MCC advisory meeting, so I'll let you do that.
Okay. The MCC Advisory Council met yesterday? What day is it? The city was well represented, and we had Manager Foggin and the Vice Mayor, myself, and I think Chief Cooper, Chief DeVries. We had the whole ED team there. The city was well represented. The Chamber CEO Becky Fossen was that we just had a great group of people, a lot of diverse cross-section of community. The college wanted input on specific questions as they prepare to write their strategic plan. And they've established some goals that they're interested in, but in order to flesh those out, they want the community input on how we would help how we prioritize them. So we have a very good working relationship now, I think, with our educational institutions, and also the WAVE CTED was, and all of the high school representation, the whole spectrum of education. And that's what it takes, all of us working together to formulate a kind of a regional strategy to move workforce and education forward. Anything else? Okay. The other things that have going on, I wanted to thank Main Street for the Veterans Parade. That was
Downtown Merchant.
Downtown Merchants. Yeah. Thank you, Downtown Merchants. It was really a very it was just a really good experience to be in that parade and to see the people that are all out there honoring our veterans, and the Patriots there with a whole line of flags, and it was just very quite moving, and so well done. Beyond that, as I said, I'm going to be in Bullhead giving our resolution tomorrow. I did speak at 2 events in the past week and a half, 2 clubs, but the one I'll mention is the forum, the Republican Forum that meets on last Wednesday. And the reason I mention it is because Mr. Brian Turney was there also on the panel, and it was the first opportunity that we had to share that space and both talk about the Kingman Crossing interchange development agreement. And I'm glad to say we agreed on the specifics. We both carried the same message, and that it was so good for the community. And he was specifically discussing how important it is, in their view, to help them attract and retain medical professionals. So, did you want to say something? Oh, okay, you have another issue. So that was very positive, and it's just a good step moving forward. I think that's it then. Okay, go ahead.
I'm sorry, Mayor.
No, please go
I've
ahead.
got a great team who is whispering in my ear that I missed something. And I want to let all of you know, as well as the community know, that the election packets for council are available and can be picked up at the clerk's office. And we are asking folks to make an appointment, usually about 30 minutes, so that Annie and Melinda can work or walk through those documents with potential candidates.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you. It's important. Next item, council requests for future work session, agenda items, and/or calendar adjustments. None? None?
I would have one.
Yeah, okay, Vice Mayor.
I'd like to request a work session. It's a public procurement item to discuss adopting an online vendor self-registration system. We do. Okay. And it's available on the website? Oh, okay. Okay, never mind. I'll go look.
Never mind. Okay, that was easy. All right. Anything else? Anything else? Okay. Then, before we adjourn, I'm sure on behalf of all of us, we wish everyone a very happy Thanksgiving and holiday period right now, and may everybody have a wonderful time and a feast and food and good friends and family. And with that, I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
I'll second that.
We have a motion to adjourn. All in favor, aye?
Aye.
Aye. Nay. Adjourned. Well, you know what?